What's up, ladies and gentlemen? Episode 4. Let's get into it. I've got a lot to talk about for this one. So, if you remember last time, it ended off with how freaking went demon mode, and then Cuban dude like, yo, what's up with you? And then now we jump into a whole new thing, and boy, is it a whole new thing. And in the foreword, the dude was like, yo, good luck following the timeline, the narrative, the da-da-da. So we're just jumping into a whole new POV. For this episode, we're going to be following a dude named Erdedy. And this is right when it ends with the dude saying, so what's up with you? What's your story, how? Right after that, it jumps into this new section called Year of the Depend Adult Undergarment. And so that's what we're doing. So basically, it's this dude, Erdedy, that is bugging. He is bugging. I'm going to write that down. He's bugging. And boy, is he bugging, bro. So, this dude, Erdedy, he's an addict. He's got some type of job. They don't really say what his job is. He does have a necktie. So, some type of job that involves a necktie. But he's about to get a whole bunch of weed. He's about to get like a pound of weed. He's going to get 300 grams of weed. And he's going to binge hard. He's going to get this 300 grams of weed. And he's going to smoke it all in 4 days. 4 days, packing them all one-hitters. Savage. So about, let's see, I wrote down, 200 grams in 4 days. So I guess a little better. 200 grams in 4 days. He's going to need to smoke 30 grams a day, which he equates to about 200 to 300 rips a day of what he claims is very high quality resin-soaked weed. Alright, so basically, it just jumps in with this dude Erdedy, and this is the opening sentence. Where was the woman who said she would come? She said she would come, Erdedy thought. She would have come by now. He sat and he thought. He's in the living room. So he's just bugging. And then I really like throughout this, there's this big analogy, maybe you could call it, between this guy Erdedy and this insect. Right here it introduces it. It says, there was an insect on one of the steel shelves that held his audio equipment. The insect kept going in and out of one of the holes on the girders that the shelves fit into. The insect was dark and had a shiny case. He kept looking over at it. Once or twice he started to get up and go over to look at the insect, but he was afraid that if he came closer and saw it, he would kill it, and he was afraid to kill it. Alright, interesting. So he sees this insect. He's like, dude, this is a cool looking insect. I want to go take a peek at this insect, but I don't want to kill it. I want to get a closer look at this insect, but I don't want to kill it. And a little later, he starts comparing himself to this insect. So I see the insect as a representation of this dude's anxiety, and he's kind of like, or I take it as a representation of this dude's anxiety, but it's also like, he says he feels connected to this insect. So he feels like a little bit of a oneness with this insect. So I take it as like, he wants to go look at it, but he's afraid to kill it. And it's kind of like he wants to go look at his anxiety because he's anxious. Like, he wants to get this weed, but he knows he shouldn't. And he even says, in here, he says he is creepy with weed. That's how he describes it. He says, when I get weed with me, I get creepy with it. And so, yeah, he's going to get 200 grams of unusually good marijuana for $1,250 US. And it says right here, he's going to do it one more last time. He keeps covering this. He says, this is the last time I'm going to do this. But it's the one more last time. It's like, if you've ever dealt with any type of addiction, like dealing with getting hooked on vaping or Zen or nicotine or weed or anything like that, a lot. That's a relatable type of thing to be like, oh, this time I'm done. You throw away a pack of Zen, and you're like, I'm done, bro. And it's like, and then you get it again, and you're like, okay, this is the last time. So it's like, this guy keeps saying, one more last time. And so how he does it, right here it says, he had tried to stop smoking marijuana 70 to 80 times before this woman knew him. Because this dude, he knows weed ain't good for him. But he has this addictive thing telling him, man, you got to get this weed. So he's like, all right, I'm going to have one more last debauch, I think is what he calls it, like debacle type thing. And so he's tried to quit 70 to 80 times, and he's had 70 to 80 different dealers, because this dude gets the weed, and then afterwards he like begs these people. He's like, yo, please don't ever sell to me again. Like, I swear, just do me a favor and like don't sell to me again. And then he says, because this guy describes himself as a Erdedy, crazy name, Erdedy. I've never heard that name. I don't know if I'm saying it right, but that's what it says. So this dude Erdedy, he says he had told every dealer he knew to cut him off, and the third party had to be someone all new. So the third party is the new dealer, because each time he got some, he knew this had to be the last time. So he asked them as a favor never to get him any more ever, and he would never ask a person again once he had told them this, because he was proud and also kind, and he would not want to put anybody in that type of contradictory position. So right there I highlighted, I said, nice of him, kudos, because he's proud and he's kind. And this makes me think of one of my favorite phrases that I used to hear my dad say. He said, too poor to paint, too proud to whitewash. So this guy's too poor to paint in terms of like he's addicted, well, like he's too, I don't know if I'm making the right connection, but too poor to paint, too proud to whitewash. So he's like, I'm too addicted to not do it, but I'm too proud to like call you back at least. So I'm going to like do a little bit. I don't know if that's the best connection. It kind of popped in my head. I don't know if that's the best connection, but that's kind of something that popped in my head. So, and kudos to this dude. He's like, yeah, dude, if I tell them not to give me anymore, I'm not going to ask them, because I don't want to put them in this contradictory position. So that's nice of him. And he says right here, he says, also he considered himself creepy when it came to dope, and he was afraid that others would see that he was creepy about it as well. So yeah, and he describes himself as creepy because later in this we see, like, he goes hard in the paint. He goes hard with this stuff, bro. Like, he gets marijuana and he starts changing his answering machine to like say that there's an emergency and he's skipping town. Then he locks his doors, shuts his blinds. He loaded up on food, water, Tums, because he says he knows like he's gonna binge so much food that he's gonna need Tums. He says he's gonna keep water by his bedside because the weed makes his mouth so dry that he'll drink some water to make his tongue stop sticking to the roof of his mouth. Swish a little bit of water, boom, get straight to smoking that weed. And then right here it says the insect had disappeared back into the hole of the steel girder. And so so originally I was thinking like, okay, that's his anxiety. It's kind of like appearing and then disappearing. He's feeling anxious about this decision, and then he's so the insect disappeared back into the hole. But the more I read, I think it's a little more of like, it is his anxiety, but it's also like, it's his addiction coming and going into that hole. And this thing keeps popping up throughout this chapter or section or whatever, however these are laid out. I don't know if they're chapters or I'm gonna call them chapters. So in this chapter or scene, yeah, the insect is like his addiction. I see it as his addictive self. And so basically this lady said she would come. She just isn't coming. And he's like really debating, like, should I call her? Should I not call her? Like, what should I do? Because I really want this weed, but I don't want to keep. And he's also worried about, because you got to think, these aren't like our current phones. These are like old dial-up phones. So he's like, I don't want to call her, but then she calls me and the line's tied up. And then it like forces her to voicemail, and then she gives up, and she's like, oh yeah, that's not going to work. So he's like really debating if he's going to call her or not. But she promised she would be here at this time. Finally, he gave in and he called her number using just audio. I don't really know how he's just using audio. I don't think there's FaceTime, but yeah, it's like 90s. I don't know. But he says using just audio, and it rang several times, and he was afraid of how much time he was taking tying up the line. He got her audio answering device. The message had a snap of ironic pop music and her voice and a male figure together. We'll call you back. Whatever. And then he did not leave a message because he did not want her to know how much he felt like he needed this. Right here it says he had been very casual about the whole thing. She said she knew this guy over the river in Alston who sold high resin dope in moderate bulk, and he yawned and said, well, maybe. Well, hey, why not? Sure, it's a special occasion. I haven't bought any in I don't know how long. He says she lives in a trailer, and she kept snakes and had no phone and was basically just not what you'd call a pleasant or attractive person at all. But the guy in Alston frequently sold dope to theater people in Cambridge, and he had a devoted following. So this dude. So I don't know if that's saying Erdedy is like a theater folk type dude. I don't know. And then he said he guessed he would have to get a good, decent amount. And he told her, he's like, I've got a bunch of friends. I've got a bunch of friends that want a bunch of weed. So, yeah, how about I just get a bunch of dope, and then I'll hook it up with the friends. It ain't just for me. Right here it says, it's actually mostly for my friends. And then, so that's like his little scapegoat. Because, like, again, he says he gets creepy with weed. He doesn't want her. He doesn't even know this girl. But I think he doesn't want himself to realize how creepy, he's kind of like telling himself, okay, these are for my friends, even though he clearly knows it ain't for his friends. But that's just kind of like his little scapegoat, make him feel a little better about himself. And then he also has the scapegoat of being like, he knows if he gets anxious about her not coming, he could be like, yo, like, sorry to bother you, but my friends are tripping. Like, they really want this stuff. So can you just hurry up and bring it to me? Like, he has this nice little scapegoat. Be like, yo, it ain't just me. It's for my friends. And then he also gets stressed because he's like, she doesn't really care about the money. Because it's going to be $1,250. And, this is like, well, I don't know. It was written in the 90s. I guess I don't exactly know when it takes place, like in the book. Whatever, $1,250, no matter what time or year it is, that's a lot of money. And she didn't accept the money off the bat. Like, he was like, yo, I'll give you the money, and then hook it up with the weed. And she's like, oh, don't worry. I know the dude. I'll just pay it, and then I'll bring it to you, and you pay it, which is kind of savage. She's like, yeah, I'll just go buy 200 grams for you. I'll pay the dude, and then I'll come. And they don't really know each other, so it's kind of like, damn, dude. All right, savage. It says he could just reimburse her when she brought it to him. This arrangement, very casual, made him anxious. And he was even more casual and said, fine, whatever, that's cool. And then it says, thinking back, he was sure he said whatever in italics right there. He says whatever, which in retrospect worried him because it might have sounded too casual, almost like he didn't care. And he says, once he made the decision to have marijuana in his home one more time, it mattered a lot. It mattered a lot. Says that twice. It mattered a lot. It mattered a lot. He had been too casual with the woman. He should have forced her to take the $1,250 from him up front so that she felt obligated to him. He's like, damn, dude, like, I should have obligated her. I feel this pressure and this stress to get this weed, but like, I don't know if this lady has the pressure and stress to bring the weed to me. And so that's stressing him out. Like, this whole thing, dude, this guy's just like so stressed out. He's like so worried about this whole thing. It says money creates a sense of obligation, and he should have wanted the woman to feel obliged to do what she said. Because again, she's late. Like, it opens with like, where's this woman? She said she would come. She ain't here. I'm stressed. I want 200 grams of weed. And then, so he just wishes that he obligated her. Let's see. It says, it mattered so much that he was somehow afraid to show how much it mattered, which I like. I like that little quote. It mattered so much that he was afraid to show how much it mattered. Because, he just wants it so bad. And he's afraid, like, to show her how much, but I think he's also afraid to show himself. And then, boom, right here. The insect on the shelf was back. So, the insect went into the girder, and it came back. My head's kind of like the anxiety's coming back. It didn't seem to do anything. This is the insect. The insect on the shelf came back. It did not seem to do anything. It just came out of the hole in the girder onto the edge of the steel shelf and sat there. After a while, it would disappear back into the hole, into the girder, and he was pretty sure it didn't do anything in there either. And so I'm like, okay, that's like his anxiety showing itself. It comes to the surface, then it goes deeper down. And in both spots, it's not really doing anything because it's not really benefiting him in any way, this anxiety, And he knows he doesn't really want this weed. Like, later, he's like, dude, I'm so stressed out. Like, I'm getting this weed, but like, I know it ain't good for me. Like, and the way he uses it, it just ain't. It just isn't working out for him. And so right here it says he felt similar to the insect in the girder. He felt similar to the insect inside the girder his shelf was connected to, but was not sure just how he was similar. So he kind of sees himself in this insect. He observes the insect. He doesn't want to kill it. He wants to go look at it, but he doesn't because he doesn't want to kill it. He's afraid that he'll kill it. And he says he feels similar, but he's not really sure how he feels similar. So he feels a little bit connected to that. And we'll analyze that a little bit more later. Right here it says, once he decided to own marijuana one more last time. That gets said a lot in this chapter. It says one more last time. He committed to several courses of actions. Like he goes, it's called the TP, the teleputer. It's just like his TV. And so his TV, it's cartridge based, but so it's pretty much like a little VHS. So he goes and gets like all kinds of movies and shows, and he gets food. He moves his car down the block, runs back, goes back home. And then it says starting that afternoon, he was going to be unreachable for several days. So he is locking in. That's kind of I'm gonna write that. He's bugging. And he is locking in. Let's get that down so we know he is locking in, boy. See, he's locking in, bro. He ain't gonna be reachable for a while. And then he packs up the refrigerator with stuff. He says like he's not gonna leave his bedroom unless it's to go to the fridge or to the bathroom. He's not gonna leave his room unless it's to the fridge or the bathroom, and even then, the trips are gonna be very quick. And he threw out all of his beer and liquor because if he drank alcohol and smoked dope at the same time, he would get dizzy and ill. And if he had alcohol in the house, he could not be relied on to drink. He could not be relied on not to drink it once he started smoking. So, he's like analytical of his low impulse control. But he's definitely got low impulse control, which whatever, like clearly he's an addict to a couple things. But so he wants the weed. So at least he recognizes like, okay, if I'm going to have this weed, I can't have alcohol around, which, whatever. But yeah, I was going to say, I hear a lot of podcasters saying that about cocaine. I've never tried cocaine. I'm not interested. I'm not going to try it. But a lot of people are like, to get sober, like on alcohol and stuff, I had to quit cocaine because they would just talk about like once they use cocaine, they have to have alcohol, or vice versa. They're like, if I have alcohol, I need cocaine. And again, I've never done it. I don't want to do it, but I'm just saying it felt like that. Like I hear a lot of people that have had issues with cocaine and alcohol that they go really hand in hand, kind of like alcohol and nicotine. It's kind of like. A lot of people, which I can relate to, I'll admit, you have a little bit of beer and you're like, oh, is there any nicotine around? They kind of can go hand in hand sometimes. But, so it's like this dude's like, look, if I smoke weed, I don't want no alcohol around because it ain't going to work out for me. And now right here it says, now just one of the insect's antennas was protruding from the hole in the girder. It protruded, but it did not move. So right here, I highlighted that. I said a stationary anxiety, ? Still there to be seen. So it's kind of like his anxiety kind of poking out from the hole. It's kind of poking out from the hole, but it's not doing anything. And so, yeah, again, this insect, it really comes a lot. Right here it says he had to buy antacids for the discomfort that all the eating would cause him late at night. So he knows he's going to binge food. He's going to binge weed. He decided that was it. He was through. He didn't even like it anymore. Okay, so right here, he's talking about the weed. Throughout this chapter a lot, he's like, I don't even like weed anymore. Like, why am I doing this? And so he's really having a hard time to, he's just like really coping with this, Like, this is really like a good insight into like an addict's mind of like, he knows he doesn't like it anymore, but he just feels like he needs it this one last time. And later, he wants to make sure this is his last time, and he takes some interesting steps to try to ensure that. It's kind of interesting. Over here it says he looked at the windows, but not at the foliage and blacktop driveway beyond the windows. So right there, I highlight that because he says he's looking out the windows, but not at the foliage and blacktop driveway beyond the windows. So he's just looking out the windows, but he's not, like he's just looking for the lady's car. he's like not noticing the blacktop driveway. He's not noticing the foliage. So I highlight that. I said laser focus. Like he's just focused. And then, okay, right here, I think this is about the insect again. It says, it occurred to him that he would disappear into a hole in a girder inside him that supported something else inside him. He was unsure what that thing is inside him, and he was unprepared to commit himself to the course of action that would be required to explore the question. So, this is him, this is him relating himself to that insect. He says it occurred to him, because, earlier he's like, I feel connected to this insect, but I don't really know how. And right here, he's like, it occurred to him that he himself is gonna disappear into a hole, because he's just gonna lock himself into his house. He's gonna shut the blinds. He's gonna lock the doors. He's changing his answering machine to say, "Yo, an emergency happened. I'm out of here. I'm out to be. You ain't gonna reach me for a few days." And so that's where he starts to recognize, okay, that's how I'm like this insect. Is like this insect is choosing to go into the dark girder. In this little hole in my shelf, and then he comes back out, and it's like it's kind of up to him when he does it, and that's what this dude Erdedy is gonna do. He's like, I'm gonna disappear into a girder inside myself. That's what's going on. Okay, look, it says outpatient action. So right here it says one of his buddies, Randy with an I, had told him, tried to get him into some outpatient program a couple years ago. His friend's trying to get him sober. Whatever. His friend knows about it, but tried to get sober. Didn't really work out. All right. Let's see. Let's continue. Talking that casual promise. All right. All right. Whatever. So he gets a new bong. He gets a whole new setup. And then this lady's still late. He's just sitting there. He's waiting in his chair. He doesn't know what to do. And right here it says, no part of the insect he had seen was now visible. And in my head, that's where, like, so he had just relayed himself to the insect, disappearing inside of himself. So like right now, he's like fully in addict mode, where he's like, fuck, dude. And right here it says, he began to grow disgusted with himself for waiting so anxiously. I think that's why the author right here says, no part of the insect he had seen is now visible. And that's like, when the insect's on top of the girder, that's like his sober self, I think, is the way I see it. And then when it goes inside the girder, that's his addict coming out. So right now, he's waiting so anxiously. He's looking out the window. He's sitting in the light. He doesn't know what to do. And he's just like paralyzed with anxiety. And then right here, he's like, he began to grow disgusted with himself for waiting so anxiously for the promised arrival of something that stopped being fun anyways. So he's like, dude, it's not even fun anymore. Like, why am I doing this? And he says, it makes my face sag, and I hate when my face sags. Like smoking the weed, he's like, it makes my face get droopy, and I hate when it gets droopy like that. It makes me feel terribly self-conscious about the fact that my face is sagging, and I'd long ago forbidden myself to smoke dope around anyone else, because he gets so self-conscious, and he just gets really anxious. He gets like panic attacks when he smokes. So that's what's kind of funny about it. I don't know, I mean, it's kind of sad, actually. It's not funny, but it just like shows you like the addictive mindset, where he's like, he points out so many flaws with weed for himself, but he doesn't point out anything positive for it. Like, nowhere in this does he really say like, oh, it's going to be fun because of this. He's like, no, dude, it makes me anxious. It turns me into a recluse. It makes my face sag. I hate when my face sags. I can't be around people. It's going to make my mouth dry. I'm going to need Tums because my stomach's going to hurt. I'm going to eat so much food. He couldn't even be around anyone else. If he had smoked marijuana that same day, it made him so self-conscious, it says right here. And it gives him a painful case of pleurisy, which I looked up. That translates to like sharp chest pain. And so it makes his chest hurt. It does all these things. Right here it says, it made his thoughts jut out crazily in jagged directions, and made him stare raptly like an unbright child at entertainment cartridges, when he laid in a film cartridge vacation of marijuana. So he calls it a film cartridge for when he lays in film cartridges for a vacation with marijuana. So it's like his little vacation, but it's not a pleasant vacation. It's a vacation that makes his thoughts jut out jaggedly, and just stare like an unbright child at his entertainment cartridges. So he's just like locked in. He's like, oh man. He's just staring at these things, he's like doom scrolling, essentially, just through doom watching, I guess you could kind of call it. And then right here it says he favored cartridges, which is just films. He favored films in which a lot of things blew up and crashed into each other. And that's a small little bit, but I highlighted that and says maybe he likes to watch that stuff because like his life's falling apart, kind of like when he does this, his life's falling apart, so he likes to see other things crash and burn and blow up. And his friend says the implication of that is not that good. And so he, like, in the back of his mind, he's like, I like to smoke all this weed and just zone out and doom watch all these films, and I especially like the films where shit's just blowing up and exploding and going downhill. And I think it's kind of like, like people that are into like gossiping or like drama like to watch a lot of like drama on TV, or it's like, it like makes you feel a little better, like, oh wow, other people have so much drama in their life. So it's kind of like this, living vicariously through that. Or it's just kind of like maybe it makes you feel a little bit of the same connection to where it's like, this dude's like, dude, my shit's crashing and burning, let me watch other things crash and burn, is the way I saw that. And he wants to make sure this is his last time with this. Right here it says he would simply smoke so much so fast that it would be so unpleasant and the memory of it so repulsive that once he had consumed it and gotten it out of his home in his life as quickly as possible, he would never want to do it again. He would make it his business to create a really bad set of debauched associations with the stuff in his memory. So this is him like making sure that it's going to be his last time. He says he's going to make it so bad for himself. And so this is what's interesting, is he's going to have this vacation, but he doesn't even want to have a good vacation. He says right here, he's going to make it his business he's going to make it his business to make it so bad so that if he thinks of weed, he's going to remember this terrible vacation he had where it's just so bad. So, interesting. And it says right here, it had long since stopped being a release or relief or fun. It long ago stopped. And again, he's tried to quit 70 to 80 times. And he said so long ago, it stopped being fun. It stopped being relieving. It stopped being good. And it says this last time he would smoke the whole 200 grams in 4 days, over an ounce a day, all in tight, heavy, economical one-hitters. So he's going to take 200 to 300 fat bong rips, is what he says, every day. And he says after 5 bong rips, he doesn't even want to move anymore. But he says he's going to make it his business. Like, he says he's going to make an insane and deliberately he's going to smoke an insane and deliberately unpleasant amount. He would make it a mission to smoke it continuously. Even though if the marijuana was as good as the woman claimed, he would do 5 hits and then not want to take the trouble to load it and hit it again for at least an hour, but he would force himself to do it anyway, even if he didn't want to. He would use discipline and persistence and will make the whole experience so unpleasant, so debased, so debauched and unpleasant that his behavior would be henceforward modified. He would cure himself by excess. So I like that quote. He would cure himself by excess. So he's like, dude, and it's kind of funny because he shows like, he's kind of like, I have strong will. I'm going to smoke so much even if I don't want to. So it's like, dude, if you have this strong will to where like you take 5 hits and you don't want any more, but you're going to force yourself to do 200 to 300 hits every single day for 4 days and cure yourself by excess, it's just kind of interesting because it's, again, it's just a peek into like that like real addictive mindset where he's like, dude, I have enough willpower to force myself to do this thing I hate so deeply, but I don't have the willpower to just not partake because whatever. So he doesn't want to not partake. He wants to partake, but he knows it's gonna be so bad. So, but he's gonna lock in so hard and make it so terrible, and so that's how he's gonna quit. He's gonna cure himself by excess. Interesting. Right here, I thought this was kind of a funny little thing the dude wrote. He's talking about how one of his last dealers, like, he kept having intercourse with his last dealer, which he's never seen again, because again he gets a dealer. He says, don't ever see me again, don't ever sell to me again, and he doesn't even want to see him again. But the last lady he had a bunch of intercourse with for 10 days before even getting the weed. And then once he got the weed from the last dealer after 10 days of banging and smushing, he never saw her again, and she was all offended, and he was like, whatever, dude. But he says, I've never actually had intercourse on marijuana. He says, the idea repelled him. Two dry mouths bumping at each other, trying to kiss, his self-conscious thoughts twisting around on themselves like a snake on a stick while he bucked and snorted dryly above her, his swollen eyes and his face sagging so slack that the folds maybe touch limply. The fold, like, both their folds are touching. So he's basically just like, dude, why would I ever have sex on weed? Because it's just two dry mouths breathing into each other, and then our faces are sagging, and we're, right here it says, sloshing back and forth. Whatever. Sorry, I just kind of thought it was kind of a funny where he's like, why would I ever do this? It sounds so gross, which is fair. It says, so right here, he also, so to the new lady, to this new chick that is still late, like she's hours late by this point, and he decides to just make it really quick and make sure this lady, he's pretty confident in himself. He's like, oh, she's going to come over, and she's probably going to want to smoke some with me, and then she's probably going to want to bang, because maybe this dude's he's just like that. He's like, yeah, she's going to want to bang. So he's like, I need to make sure she doesn't want to see me again. And so he says, when she comes, I'm going to open the door and tell her, throw the bag. And then I'm just going to throw the money at her and say, don't let the door hit your ass on the way out. He said, I will make sure to say ass instead of butt, because I'm going to be so rude and so unpleasant to her that the memory of his lack... okay, well, I keep saying I'm coming from his point of view. The author is doing this from like a third person. So he's saying he would be so rude and so unpleasant to her that the memory of his lack of basic decency and tight, offended face would be a further disincentive ever to ever come back. And so he's just like, I'm just going to be mean to this chick, and then she's never going to want to come back. And so he wants to make it his business to be so mean to her that like she won't even want to come back, and then he doesn't ever have to work. And then he also wants to do it because he's like, I want to make sure that I never call her back, even though I'm going to tell her to never like sell to me again. He's like, I'm just going to be such a dickhead that I'll be too anxious to call her. And again, here's him curing himself by excess. He's like, I'm going to be excessively mean, and then I'm never going to call her again because I'll be excessively anxious to call her. And then right here he says he had never been so anxious for the arrival of a woman he did not want to see. And so the woman, I think, the woman's the dealer. So the woman is the marijuana. So he says he's never been so anxious for the arrival of a woman he did not want to see, but he does want to see her. Like, in terms of, he's so anxious throughout this whole chapter, he's so anxious to see her, but he knows he doesn't want to see her. And so it's like the woman, yes, is the dealer, but it's like also the woman is the marijuana. And so he's like, he's so anxious for this like terrible vacation he knows he's going to have, because he knows it's going to suck. He knows it's going to be so bad. And then right here, he's talking about the last woman. And in this, I think the last woman, again, because the last woman is just his last dealer. So his last woman just represents the last terrible vacation he had. And, okay, I kind of wrote a bunch of stuff on this because I want to hammer on this a little bit, because I was reading this earlier and I thought it was, like, pretty good. So let me read it out, and then let me tell you what I think about it. It says, he remembered clearly the last woman he'd involved in this terrible vacation with drawn blinds and had been something called an appropriation artist, which is she copies paintings. She basically just takes other people's paintings, copies them, and then sells them. And then he says he had let her give him one of her smaller paintings, which covered half the wall over his bed, of a famous film actress whose name he always had a hard time recalling, and a less famous film actor, and the two of them entwined in a scene from a well-known old film, or a romantic scene and embrace, copied from a film history textbook, and it's much enlarged, and it has obscenities all over it in bright red letters. And so right there, so again, this last lady, she paints things. So like in this one, she painted a picture from an old history textbook of some famous lady that he doesn't know and some even less famous actor that he doesn't know. And so in that, I take it as a, and it takes up half his wall. Like, he didn't even want to, he doesn't want to really associate with this woman, but she gives him a painting that takes half his wall, which in of itself is crazy. Like, that's crazy to give somebody a painting that big. I mean, it's cool probably, I guess, but, and he still has the painting hung up. And so it's this painting of a woman and a guy in a romantic scene. And it's like, I first read it and I was like, dude, why is the author like talking about this painting? But and this long ass book. So at first when I was reading it, I was like, I don't know, dude, this is just such a long book that like he's probably just throwing in all these crazy little details just because. But it's like, no, we can't really think like that because this dude is like a renowned author. And this book has so much staying power, and people say it's so crazy. And I'm like, okay, maybe there's something a little more to it. So then just the more I thought of it, I was like, well, okay, look. The lady painted something from a history book, a history textbook, and it's an embrace, a romantic scene between a lady he doesn't know and an actor he doesn't know. And I take that as the lady he doesn't know in the painting is just the weed, because he's like, it's just like this lady he vaguely knows. But so whatever. So it's this painting, and she gives it to him, and it's painted from a history textbook. And so I take it as like it's painted. He says, sorry if I feel scattered. I got excited when I read this, and I'm just trying to get my thoughts out. I'm a little scattered. But so the painting is from a history textbook, and so I take it like, why is it from a history textbook? Well, because it's like the history of his love with weed. It's an embrace, a romantic scene from weed. I would assume at one time this dude liked weed. Like, he's tried to quit 70, 80 times, but in between that time, I would assume at some point he enjoyed himself with the weed, and he did have like these romantic ideas, or romantic time, romantic in quotes of like, yeah, I had these good times with the weed. And so this lady, the lady is just his old dealer. He doesn't even like this lady. He banged her for 10 days, and then he said he never wants to see her again, and he was a dick to her. And then she got all upset about it. And then it has obscenities in red letters. So it's a romantic scene with obscenities, just like weird words all over it, like obscene things. So I take it as just like bad words or just like random words, and it's kind of just like in red letters they pop out. And so I take that as like it's this romantic scene from a history textbook, and so it's just like this romantic idea of what weed used to be for him. And then it takes up half his wall, and it's hanging above his bed. He puts it above his bed, and so I'm like, dude, this painting is literally hanging over his head, which I'm not trying to like go too deep into it, like people analyzing like Kendrick bars, but it's like, dude, this is kind of like how I feel like you got to read this book a little bit. Like, I don't think this dude's just like writing so many pages, and I also heard that they edited this book down from like so many more pages to this one, so it's like he's keeping the stuff that's supposed to be kept. So again, from the history textbook, the lady, it's this embrace with red obscenities scrawled all over it, and it's hanging above his head. So it's just like from this history textbook where it's like, dude, it's the history of the weed. It's the history of his romantic endeavors with weed, where it was good, but now there's red obscenities all over it. Like, it isn't what it used to be, and now he hangs it. It's literally hanging over his head, and so I take it as like, he doesn't even know the actor in the painting, he doesn't even know the lady in the painting, and I take that as like he hardly knows himself, and he hardly knows this lady, especially when he's intertwined with weed. And this is this romance scene in my head between the weed and him, and then the red obscenities all over it is just kind of like his anxieties and his poor thoughts just all over these memories. And then this thing's just hanging over his head. He sees it every day when he goes to bed, and it's just like, I take it as just this constant reminder to him of his addiction, and this like romantic thing with weed that really isn't romantic, and it has obscenities all over it, and like it is romantic, but it's not. The idea of it's romantic, and maybe at some point it was romantic, but now it isn't. And then right here it continues. It says, the last woman had been sexy but not pretty, as the woman he now did not want to see and was waiting so anxiously for is pretty in a faded, withered way that made her seem pretty but not sexy. And I was like, all right, dude, yeah, you're just like thinking about these ladies. But I'm like, no, I think it's a little more than that. The last woman had been sexy but not pretty, and so that was one of his other one last times. And maybe it was like a sexy idea, but it wasn't pretty. And then like And so maybe it went a little better, like, I don't know. But then this lady is pretty in a withered way, but not sexy. And why is she pretty in a withered way, but not sexy? Because he's not really talking about the woman, I don't think. I think he's talking about, like, this vacation with the weed is pretty, but not sexy. Because it's pretty in a withered way. Because he thinks it's going to make him quit. He thinks this is the time he's finally going to quit. He's going to work so hard and smoke so much and do so much that, like, it's not going to be sexy. It ain't going to be good. Like, he's going to have such a dry mouth. He's going to be so anxious. He's going to be so panicked. He's going to hate it. He's going to smoke 300 hits a day and, like, hate it. He's going to be done after 5, but still do 300. So it's going to be, and it's going to be pretty in a withered way. It's going to be pretty in this withered way because it's like a wilted flower in terms of, like, I don't know, it's like pretty in a withered way because he thinks it's going to get him to quit. And so it's pretty in that way, but it ain't sexy. And the last lady was sexy because maybe he had a better time with that weed. He didn't really, like, talk about, like, that time being that bad. He said he just, like, with the like, lady that gave him that weird painting, like, it wasn't, like, he didn't mention it being that bad of a time. He just says, like, it happened, he got a bunch of weed, and he stopped for a while. So I'm thinking, like, okay, maybe that was sexy but not pretty. And maybe it was sexy because, like, he had a good time with the lady, he got a little bit of action with her for 10 days, and then he got the weed, and then, like, it was cool, but it wasn't pretty because, like, it wasn't healing his soul. It wasn't doing anything. So, like, this is pretty in his head because he thinks it's going to heal his soul in a way because he's going to work so hard that this is going to be the time he quits, which, who knows? Hopefully it's the time he quits. I don't know. And so he told this lady, the lady that gave him this, the painting, he had told her that he made her think that he was a speed addict, and that he had this addiction to meth. And then he would even describe, like, what the meth, I don't know, I guess, like, meth leaves a taste in your mouth. So he's like, and he's not addicted to meth, but he told this lady, yeah, I'm so addicted to meth, that's why I need weed. So he led her to believe that the marijuana kept him from using the drug, which he really had a problem. He has a problem with marijuana. He doesn't have a problem with meth, but he got this lady to think that he has a problem with marijuana. Oh my gosh, 42 minutes deep? Holy crap, I thought I was like 20 minutes in. Alright, whatever, hopefully y'all are kicking with me, dude. Alright, whatever, dude, we're chilling, we're going. Yeah, dude, so, sorry, I lost my train of thought. I did not know I was 42 minutes deep, bro. That's insane. Alright, we're cool and we're good. So yeah, he convinces this lady that he's addicted to meth, and that's why he needs the weed. But that's not true. Again, he wants all these scapegoats. And he really needed her to help him, is what it says right here. And he's like, I didn't lie to her. Like, I gave her more of an impression that conveyed that. Right here it says, he had not sat down and outright bold-faced lied to her. But he did. I mean, essentially. And then it says, he had given more of an impression he had conveyed and nurtured and allowed to gather its own life and force. So, like, he says, I didn't, like, straight up lie to her. I just, like, kind of kept dropping hints and, like, kind of convincing her, oh, I'm addicted to meth. But, like, I see that as more like that's really what he's doing to himself with weed, because he's like, he's not lying to himself, even though he is. But he's like, I just nurtured this idea and allowed it to gather its own life and force. And it's like, that's him, like, nurturing this idea that, like, oh, I can have weed a little bit, or I can have this one last time. But he's like, I didn't lie to her, but he did. And he's like, and he's lying to himself that, like, this is going to work out for him, but it's just not. And then right here it says, the insect was now entirely visible, is on the shelf. It says, the insect might never actually have retreated all the way back into the hole in the shelf's girder. What looked like its reemergence might just have been a change in his attention. And I really like that, because there's like, dude, now the insect's back being visible. And it's like this anxiety, like, now he's, like, observing this anxiety again. He can fully see it. And, like, he's Whoa, I know that. Whoa, a lot of loud sounds going on outside. I don't know what's up. You guys probably can't hear this because I have, like, this direct mic, but there's some crazy sounds going on outside. What's up? I don't know. Hopefully it's all good. But now the insect's entirely visible. He's, like, seeing his anxiety coming back. And he still hasn't got this weed yet. But then I really like that. It says the insect maybe never even retreated all the way back into the girder hole. Like, maybe I just changed my focus. And so it's like maybe he's always been an addict, because it's like this thing where it's comparing like his anxiety or his addictive self, and it's like maybe the addict is always there. Maybe my anxiety is always there, and I'm thinking like he's like, maybe I think the insect is going into the girder, but maybe it never even went into the girder. And he's like, maybe I think I'm going in and out of this addiction, but like I actually just always have this addiction inside of me. Is the way I see that. So I really like this whole bug thing. It's just really good. All right, let's speed this up a little bit. Yeah, I wrote so much down for this because it's just so interesting. And then like, see, like even right here, like there's all these random things. I'm just like, does it mean anything? And then the more I think of it, I'm like, well, it must mean something. Like, why is he adding it in here? And so like what I wrote down right here is like that the appropriation artist, the painter that gave him that weird painting, his last dealer, the last time they had talked, the last contact they had was she mailed him a picture of her next to a mat, a coarse green plastic grass mat with the word welcome on it, next to a flattering photo of her, and then an unequal sign next to it. So that's the last time he talked to this last dealer. Well, he didn't really talk to her, but she mailed him a flattering photo of herself. And in that photo of herself, she's by a green plastic mat that says welcome. A green plastic grass mat that says welcome. And I take that as like, okay, dude, that just shows like she's representing the weed. And then this like this turf grass, like fake grass mat that says welcome. And it's like, dude, welcome back to this chemical dependence. That's a bar he said earlier. He's like, this chemical, right here, he says this descent back into the hell of chemical dependence is like where he's going back. And so I think that this plastic green grass kind of represents that, because it's like a picture of this attractive lady, probably, I don't know. It's an attractive photo of her, and she's standing next to a welcome mat that's made of plastic green grass. So it's just like this unnatural mat that says welcome. And it's just like, okay, that's kind of random, but it's like, no, dude, like she's welcoming him back, because then that was the last time they talked, and after he got the weed from her, he just gave her the boot. He's like, all right, get out of here. So yeah, I'm just like, oh damn, dude. All right. So I don't know, dude. Again, I'm not trying to like totally overanalyze this, or like these are just the thoughts I get. So yeah, dude. Plastic mat. It's like, welcome back to this hell of chemical dependence. And so I just thought that was interesting. And then he's like, yeah. Then after that, he's not seen for a while. All right, let's keep it moving. Let's keep it grooving. And then yeah, okay. I'll just skip over a bit of this stuff. And then right here, he's like. He went to the bathroom, so he still hasn't got the weed. He's still like, this girl's like over 3 hours late, and he's like, I have to go to the bathroom. And then he goes, he walks to the bathroom, making it a point to neither look at the insect on the shelf nor his telephone console, because he still wants to call this chick, but he won't. And he doesn't want to look at the phone, and he doesn't even want to look at the insect, because like if he sees the insect, he might bug out. If he sees the phone, he's going to try and call her, and he doesn't want to call her. And then right here, he describes the bong. I just highlighted it because I was like, damn, bro. It says the bong was 1/2 meter tall. So what's that, like 1.5 feet tall? Big bong. It's orange plastic. Gross. The carb on the side, like a little hole on the side, is just like, it seems like it just got stabbed. It says it has rough shards of plastic protruding from the little hole. And then he's like, dude, I kind of like that it has this rough plastic, because like it'll probably hurt my thumb. It might cut my thumb when I'm smoking out of it. And he's like, but you know what? He says, which he decided to consider just a part of the penance he would undertake once the woman gave him his weed. And so he's like, oh, whatever, dude. And this bong is orange. It's like 2 feet tall, and it's fuzzy. It says it's like in felt. It's like orange plastic, but the base has felt. And then the carb thing, it is literally like rough, sharp plastic. So he's like, it's probably going to cut my thumb, but you know what? What the fuck ever. So kind of crazy. And then he calls it the penance he's going to undertake. He just wants to get some weed, but it's like, why do you want the weed? But then he's like, it's a penance. I'm going to punish myself pretty much. Like I'm going to do everything in my power to like not enjoy this weed. So it's like, dude, just don't get the weed. But he's an addict. So you know what? He's going to do it the way he thinks he needs to do it. And then he goes to the bathroom. Right here it says, in the bathroom, his throat suddenly closed and he wept hard for 2 or 3 seconds. The weeping stopped abruptly and he could not get it to start again. This author is really good at like just pointing stuff out that I feel like a lot of us can relate to, where it's like, if you ever like really hit a little hard cry and then it just stops, And you're like, yo, where the fuck did that crying go? Like, I was just crying kind of hard. And then you're like, is it coming back? Am I going to cry again? It is like, no, bro, you're done crying. Sorry, dude. And then it's like you don't necessarily want to cry again, but it's like, well, what happened? And so this dude goes in the bathroom and he just starts bawling because he knows this is a problem. He knows this isn't going to be a good 4 days for him, dude. He cries for 2 or 3 seconds. He weeps for 2 or 3 seconds. And then it stops, and he's like, "Where'd it go? I don't even know." And so I don't know, dude. This author he's really good at like pointing out these small little things and just observing these things and then putting them into words. So it's like, oh shit, dude. All right, yeah. Like I know what you mean. And so dude, this dude Erdedy, he goes to the bathroom and just cries because he knows this is gonna be a problem. He knows it's not gonna be good. He thought he needed to use the bathroom, but he was not able to. He's still so anxious. He's still so freaking worried. And then whatever. And then he's like, maybe I should like watch some TV. But then he doesn't want it. He says he's unable to distract himself. He has a strong anxious feeling. Oh, so he's like, he has a strong, sorry, excuse me. He has a strong anxious feeling that there was something more entertaining on another cartridge. So he was like, maybe I should just watch some TV. But he doesn't want to because then he's anxious that if he watches something, he'll have this strong anxious feeling that there's something better he could be watching. And so it's just like this dude's getting so anxious and he's like getting so strung out because he's so stressed. And he's like, maybe I should watch something. But he's like, but if I watch something, I'm going to be so stressed that there's something better I could be watching. So he like cycles through a couple channels and he's like, this is not working out. And then his phone finally rings. He's like, fuck yeah. And then he's flooded with either excitement or relief. But then it's his friend. He's like, oh, fuck, dude, it's my fucking friend. Get off the phone. And it's the friend, not the woman. And it says he's almost sick with disappointment. So he's pissed, dude. He's like, dude, I want my dealer, not you. What's up? Later. Get out of here. But then he starts bugging because he's making a voicemail happen to where like if he doesn't answer the phone, he's gonna be like, yo, it's an emergency, I'm out of town for 4 days, because he's calling off work, all these things. So then he starts to get stressed out because he answers the phone. He doesn't have call screening, so he's like, I don't know who's on the phone. So he answers it and he's like, dude, what the fuck, don't call me. Hangs up the phone. But then he starts bugging. He's like, dude, what if he calls back? Because he's like, I hung up so fast that he probably thinks I'm mad at him. So he's like, what if he calls back? I don't want to answer. And then there's an emergency tone when I just like then there's this voicemail that says, I'm out of town, it's an emergency. And then so he starts stressing. He's like, gosh dang it, dude, did I just mess that up? And then he's like, maybe I should try to do this. Maybe I should change my voicemail. And he's just bugging so hard. And he's like, no, I shouldn't do it. Like if he calls back, maybe he just won't call back. I don't know, dude. He's stressed. He's so stressed. And then right here it says he kills time casually by trying to imagine what entertaining scenes of unwatched. He killed time casually by trying to imagine what entertaining scenes on the unwatched viewer the changing colors and intensify might signify. So he's just killing time by just imagining what fun stuff he could watch. He's not even watching stuff. He's just like imagining that, like, oh, there's probably fun stuff I could watch. And then he's like, should I do this? Should I do that? And he's like, oh, should I just go like watch some adult content? And then he's like, he did not reject the idea so much as not react to it and watch it as it floated away, which he should just do with this whole vacation. I'm going to repeat that. He did not reject the idea so much as just not react to it and watch as it floated away. He thought very broadly of desires and ideas being watched but not acted upon. He thought of impulses being starved of expression and dying out and floating dryly away. And then he felt on some level that this had something to do with him and his circumstances of what he's committing himself to. If it did not resolve his problem, and then it would surely be called his problem. Sorry, dude. When I try to read, it sometimes doesn't work. So he's just like, he starts to recognize like he has this thought, should I go watch like some adult content? And he's like, no. And then he just watches the idea float away. And he's like, I'm starting to feel like maybe that signifies what's going on right now. Like maybe I just. And then he gets stressed out. He's like, okay, you know what? I can't even think of this right now. Like, this is too much. I'm not going to think of, like, observing these thoughts and then letting them not go away. And then right here, all right, look, we're going to close out right here. Look, this is where it's about to end. It says he could not even begin to see how the image of the impulses floating dry away could relate to him or the insect. He's still thinking about the insect. And he's like, these thoughts floating away, they don't, I don't need to think about them. I'm just not going to think about them. And then his intercom and his front door's buzzer both sound at the same time, both loud and tortured and so abrupt they sounded yanked through a very small hole in a great balloon of colored silence he sat in. So his door buzzer pops off and his phone rings at the same time. And he says it's so abrupt, it's so loud, it's a tortured sound. And then he says he reaches for the phone, and then he reaches for the door, and then he somehow tries to move towards both. And then he's just sitting there, arms and legs wildly jagged out, as if something has been flung and sprayed across the room, between the two sounds. So it says right here, it closes off. His arms are flung out, splayed, entombed between the two sounds without a thought in his head. Boom. And that's where it ends. And then it's going to jump back to Hal. After all this, after me talking for an hour, goddamn, hopefully it's cool. Hopefully y'all don't mind. We chilling, we cooling. But yeah, dude, so he's got his arms and legs jagged out because he's been so stressed this whole time. He's just imagining fun stuff he could do. He's imagining, like, oh, should I observe my thoughts and let them float away? And then he starts getting stressed out. He's like, nah, I don't want to think about that. And then his phone rings. And then the door, doorbell goes off. And then he reaches for the phone. And he reaches for the door. And then he's just sitting there in like a limbo. And he has no thoughts in his head. And that's where it ends. Legit just, boom, without a thought in his head. Over. Boom. And then it's going to jump back to Hal. So after this, we're going to go back to Hal next time. But, dude, all right, I know that was long, but that's just this crazy little insight into, like, an addict's head. And also, it's just like, what the heck, dude? Hal's on the stretcher. Like, Hal's still, like, a Cuban dude just came up to Hal. He's like, yo, what's up with you? And then all of a sudden, now we're just talking about some dude named Erdedy going so crazy needing weed. He's got a crazy painting above his head. Things are all crazy. And he's so stressed, and then finally it resolves with him just splayed out. He's like, yeah, where do I go? And you know, so that just represent, and I see that as like him grappling between, like, do I go get it? Of course he's just grappling between, do I answer the door or do I answer the phone? But it's like, dude, go answer the door, or just open the door. If it ain't who you want, go answer the phone, or just do both. But I take it more as like, that's him grappling with the idea of like, okay, do I want to do this thing, commit myself to this terrible vacation, or do I not? He's like grappling between his anxieties. He's grappling between the idea of like, okay, do we do it? Do we not? What do we do? I don't know, dude. But damn. All right. That was a long one. But dude, that's some good stuff, dude. This guy's going crazy. My dad's going crazy. My dad's going crazy. I just listened to that song the other day. All right, dude. Here we go. Look. Sidetracked. He's bugging. He's locking in. Episode 4. Boom, dude. Look at that. Dude, AMC to the moon. That didn't work out. Yup. I drew that way back in the day. Fun fact, AMC paid for me to move to Salt Lake City with my lady. I had no money, but I got lucky. My buddy was like investing in AMC. Then I got like a few $1,000, got really lucky, pulled out. And then I was like, I know how to do stocks. Invested a little bit more money, just lost a couple $1,000, boom, off the get. I put like $900 here, $900 there that I barely had. I was like barely out of high school. I got a little bit of money from AMC. I was like, bruh, I know how stocks work. And then I lost a bunch of money, but it's still net positive to me. I net neutraled pretty much. I still got a couple $1,000, moved out to Salt Lake City, got a job. We stayed there for 4 years, moved out. Now we back in Cali. Now we chilling. Now we're reading Infinite Jest. Thank you for watching. Henny reads a book. Sidetrack reads a book. Come back soon. We out of here. All right. Thanks.